When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, Allbirds or Skims, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and brilliant marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for the shoppers buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with ShopPay, that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/audioboom. All lowercase. Go to shopify.com/audioboom to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/audioboom.
All remote viewing here is projecting your subconscious to a place. Time and distance has no meaning whatsoever. You can go into the past, you can go into the future.
Tom Dongo is my guest. There is nothing that he can't do. Let's just do it that way, okay? It's been a while since we've talked. You are absolutely astounding at all of the things that you were able to do. You're still writing books. You are still basically teaching the masses about the paranormal. It runs the entire gamut from whether you've seen something that's considered maybe a ghost, a UFO, an ET, you've walked through a portal, all of that. And the bestseller for you, Merging Dimensions, The Opening Portals of Sedona, is an outstanding book. Hi, Tom. Thanks for connecting.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Wendy.
What topic is the most important for you to cover at this moment?
Well, I've talked to about 100 million people in the last 11 years, and I can talk on any subject, but remote viewing, I was born with the ability. So I'm discovering that an Air Force colonel sent me this website that I've got to check out, but there's a new form of remote viewing, and I'm just going, well, what the heck, I'm going to check it out. So I will as soon as I can.
What is the new form?
I don't know. They're just saying it's a new type. I have my own version. When Maureen St. Germain and I were teaching remote viewing, we had some super successes. We had a couple of people that turned into phenomenal remote viewers, and she would teach the military version with the coordinates, and she used to joke that I taught the Tom Dongo version, so we'd combine them. And so we had a lot of fun doing it. But there's a couple of people that charge $5,000 to teach them remote viewing. I've tried to give it away. I wish there were seriously millions of remote viewers, and I've tried to give it away. I've been talking to as many as 3 or 4 million people on a show. I've tried to give it away. I don't know how much success I've had, but I gave it my best shot because I really would. My best wish is that people could see the things I see. All remote viewing here is projecting your subconscious to a place. Time and distance has no meaning whatsoever. You can go into the past, you can go into the future. Try to teach my version. My version is very simple. It's basically what I say is that I don't have any coordinates. The military version uses coordinates. I've tried them, and I'm kind of okay at it, but that's not the way I see things. So I teach people. I say, if you're in New York and you grew up in Kansas, that's what I use. I say, on a farm in Kansas, and you still have relatives there, people that just while you're in New York, visualize yourself back in your farm in Kansas, and it's not your imagination. Keep doing it, and you will, and you don't have to go into a trance or meditation or anything like that. You can do it driving down the road because I do. And you go to this place anywhere. I mean, you can be in Egypt and go to Africa or whatever. It doesn't matter where you are. But when I tell people, okay, you're living in New York, but you're from Kansas, so if somebody still lives there, like your parents or whatever, that's even better. So project yourself back there and visualize yourself being there. And is the lawn green? Is the sky blue? Is it raining? Is it snowing? Is it cold? Is it hot? And then put and you will actually, after a while, because I do it, I've done it many times. But for instance, what I did one time, I went to a guy's house in Colorado. I projected myself there, and I said, hey, Tom, what's that brand new green John Deere tractor doing in your yard? Because he wasn't a farmer at all. And he said, well, yeah, I hate to admit it, but my next door neighbor doesn't want his wife to know that he bought a brand new tractor, and so he's hid it over here underneath my porch for a couple of weeks. So as well, when you do something like that, that's a hit. That's a big hit.
Yeah.
So if you keep doing that, and it works. I mean, that's how I do it, and you will actually. And I tell people, don't freak out. You will actually project yourself. Now, your body will still be in New York, but another version of your body will be there in Kansas. You can touch yourself. You can look around. You can feel just like you're really there. I've done it many times. That's what happens. I tell people, don't freak out when that happens, because then, while you're there, you project yourself there, and it can be anywhere. Maybe you had a nice vacation in Paris, France. I've done it. I've never been to France, but I was a friend was at the Eiffel Tower, and I said, what's the smoke? It's smoke. It's smoky as hell here. And she said, yeah, that's what it is. A lot of people have wood fires in the winter, and it gets real smoky. I said, well, that's a hit. And then I've never been to the pyramids either, but I went into the King's Chamber with Maureen St. Germain, because she'd been there a number of times, and I said, it stinks in here. And what it was people were had to pee, so they peed in the King's Chamber. I said, she said, well, you're right. And so you can smell things.
Yeah.
You can remote view and you can smell things.
One of my favorite stories you told was when you were somebody I think was on vacation, and when he wanted you to check out his house, and you said, well, I'm sorry to tell you that the dog has chewed up something. There's paper all over the floor.
Oh,
that one. Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot about that. That was, I got to remember that for the next show. I talk about it. But yeah, the dog, that was my friend Tom O'Donnell, a psychologist, and his dog Binky had pulled books out of the bookshelf and chewed them up all over the place. And so a friend of mine, a woman, went over there because I said she should check it out. And she said, Tom, you're right. The dog chewed up books all over there, all over the all over the house.
Yeah, a little separation anxiety or temper tantrum, one of the two.
Yeah. Well, so that's a pretty good hit. It's fun.
You've done so much. The thing that I think a lot of people are fascinated by is your experiences at the Bradshaw Ranch, because it's very much like Skinwalker. It has all sorts of anomalies, and it hasn't stopped. It just isn't available to the public.
Yeah, it's. I go out about once a year. I'm 80 years old now, so I don't get around much. I just don't have the energy that I used to have. This happened just 2 days ago. Bigfoot. There's been Bigfoot on the ranch for a long time, because Linda Bradshaw saw them, and there was one, a white Bigfoot. She called it Big Girl, and she used to feed it, leave it grapes and stuff like that, in a high place. Only a Bigfoot could reach it. Nothing else could climb up the, raccoons. Nothing else could get up there. So just the other day, my friend Jürgen Hess. Incidentally, his grandfather was Hitler's right-hand man, Rudolf Hess. It was his grandfather. Anyway, Jürgen, he took a photograph, and it's only got the toes, but it was a perfect Bigfoot track. The toes were perfect. It was about 6 inches wide. So it's still going on out there.
I think that's what is the most curious, is that there's so much happening, and yet, for the most part, people don't see it.
Well, I've been, when I was younger, I was known as being reckless. I used to hunt them on their turf, and I did. And I never got hurt, but there were times I got real scared. But I've never been a couch potato. I would go out in the field. I was out in the field a lot of times by myself, so I had experiences that very few people ever had. And then Linda Bradshaw, I spent 4.5 years, about 3 days a week on the Bradshaw Ranch. And Bob Bradshaw, a UFO landed right in the apple orchard, right in front of him, with about 50 basketball-sized orbs around it. They were white. Bob said, that's enough for me. I've seen it. So Linda used to go in and he'd say, Bob, you've got to come out and see this. You've got to. He wouldn't. He'd stay in the house and watch TV. He would never come out.
You have some of those stories, though, in the Mysteries of Sedona and some of the events that people have experienced. There's one that stands out. I don't remember the name offhand, but there were two guys who had an experience, saw the UFO. The other guy said, never talk about it again. I don't want to hear it. Leave me alone. You know, this didn't happen, kind of, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I haven't thought of that story for a long time. But, yeah, that really happened. This is not BS. I mean, I talked to both of those guys, and it was a long time ago, and it was probably 30 years ago, but they were Sycamore Canyon. It's kind of, I live in Cottonwood now, which is about 20 miles from Sedona, and Sycamore Canyon is pretty close to Cottonwood. But Sycamore Canyon is one of the strangest places on this planet. It's beautiful. It's got a creek, a creek, it's a river. There have been so many strange things happening there. I tell people, don't go in there alone. Don't do it. Still, I say, take 2 or 3 people with you. To this day, I tell them, because I've seen things, and not only me, we've seen purple lights flashing out of Sycamore Canyon. I watched about two or 3 years ago. I watched a UFO or whatever it was, came down out of the sky about 50,000 miles an hour, pure white, molten white, and it slowed and landed in Sycamore Canyon. You could see it going behind the trees, landing, and 10,000 people should have seen it, because there's a plain view of Highway 89A and the whole city of Cottonwood, plain view. So the next day I called around and I actually put on the internet, did anybody else see it? And I've done this twice. It was my phone number, and nobody. I was evidently the only one that saw it. And on the highway, there should have been hundreds of people that saw that, and nobody did. You know, either I'm the only one that sees these things, or people don't look up.
Then there's probably a bit of truth in both of those, because there are sometimes when people are together in a group and a lot of people will see it and 1 or 2 people will have absolutely no ability to even see it. And so you wonder, is it because of them or because of whatever it is chooses not to be seen?
I have endless stories. I do this in every show. This story is when I was living in Santa Cruz, California. There was a friend of mine. He was on Main Street. I can't remember the name of it, but the earthquake just destroyed that a while back. But at any rate, there was a disc-shaped ship sitting right over the road, and he was looking around, and nobody else could see it. Nobody else. It was right there, plain sight, about 50 feet across, a disc. And people were walking around, and he came to the conclusion that nobody else saw it. So he didn't say anything. So about 10 minutes later, a friend of his came running down the sidewalk, and he said, "You won't believe what I just saw." So it was only 2 guys that saw that. And how do they do that? How do extraterrestrials do it? They must narrow the frequency so that only that person could see it, or the frequency. That's the only thing I can. The only conclusion I can come to.
It makes it hard to tell the story, because when you saw it and the people around you didn't, then all of a sudden you look like you're crazy or making up a story, and even the people who were there with you wonder, well, okay, what's wrong with you?
When I was younger, I talk about this a lot on these shows, and I used to get attacked constantly, for my stories, and I debunkers, skeptics, disbelievers, and so I quit 3 times. I said, I can't take any more of this BS, all the attacks. And some of them were obviously government-sponsored. I mean, they were professional debunkers. They were trained to make you look stupid. And I just got sick of it. But then another UFO thing would happen, and I'd get back into it again. So now lately, in the last 10 years or so, I've talked to well over 100 million people, and nobody has, called me, some kind of a name or whatever. Nobody has complained to to show that this guy's nuts. So, I can usually pretty much prove whatever I talk about by witnesses or photographs or whatever. So,
well, and that's a great thing about your books. You include photographs. You try to give people, enough information, some data to actually back up whatever it is the sighting talks about. There's one in terms of the unusual things that happen around sightings. There was a story that a mom and her daughter driving between Sedona and to Flagstaff out on 89A, I think, and then they had a sighting. You remember? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, well, you can tell it.
Well, these two people were totally normal. They're two totally normal people that had an incredible experience. I have interviewed and been around some people that are crazy. I mean, they're nuts. I've talked to people that are completely insane, and they can sound normal, but they're crazy. They're insane. So once in a while I run into that, and then some are just mean. I mean, they're just out to, the trolls, the internet trolls, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
they're just mean. So anyway, these two women, her and her daughter, it was in the pine trees going towards Flagstaff. The pine trees are about 60 or 70 feet high, the ponderosa pines, and a ship, a disc, tilted straight up and down. It came down and almost touched their car. Yeah, there were no other cars, nobody else saw them. And she said that thing almost touched our car. Then it took off. So, I've heard those kind of stories many times from people that they're normal.
Yeah.
They're just totally everyday normal people.
Well, and the odd thing about that was there was no traffic, which normally there would be traffic. And this isn't an unusual thing. It's like somehow everything clears or you're in a different dimension. Yep. Something happens to keep the other, what we would consider normal events from happening.
Yeah. And that has happened a lot. Nobody else. There should have been at least, a few cars on that road at the same time, but there wasn't. So, maybe the extraterrestrials. I've met 3 extraterrestrials. We can talk about that if you want.
Absolutely, yeah.
They weren't human. And one I can prove because my girlfriend was standing right. We both talked to her. There are extraterrestrials here. I studied human extraterrestrials for 50 years. I'm actually kind of burned out with all this BS discussion and disagreements going on right now in the government. I've been dealing with them for 50 years, and they're here. And I'm sick of it. I really all this stuff that the bickering and squabbling, and so I just let me tell you this. This was a secret for a while, but I have a friend. There's a government insider. I mean, deep government. He says that the extraterrestrials are so tired of us killing ourselves off and destroying the planet that they're going to intervene. They're not going to have war with us, but they're going to stop us. And they're not human. The guy said he saw one of them, and it scared the hell out of him. Scared him to death. So they're not. He said they weren't really humanoid either. They were kind of human, but he said that just being around one of them really scared him. So I'm thinking, well, man, that's pretty interesting. But he said they're. I don't know if you've seen this. I put it on the internet many times. Paul Hellyer, the Canadian Minister of Defense.
Yes.
I put it on. I keep putting it back on, and Facebook lets me do it. In fact, I'm going to do it again today. But he said the same thing. The governments have been told that they're here, and they said your planet is in great danger. Your water is polluted, and if your people don't do something about it pretty soon, it's going to be too late. I guess I have high credibility because the guy interviewed me. He said he played it for this insider to validate him. He said this to me proves you're real. You're an honest guy. So I thought, well, that's pretty highfalutin for me, to be considered like that. Anyway, I've been waiting. I'm not going to push it. My friend, he's waiting for this guy to get back in touch with him. He's going to meet him in person. He doesn't know his name, but this guy said that they can't find me. They won't find me because I'm so familiar with the FBI and the CIA. I know how they operate. And if I don't want to be found, they'll never find me. So that means this guy is a major insider. But he said they're going to intervene pretty soon, because there's been probably 3 nuclear wars on this planet. I've researched that myself. Place in Africa, there's one in Pakistan. They just found one, or they just talked about it in the Great Pyramid in Egypt. They found rows and rows of buried bodies, and some scattered all over the place, and they're radioactive. They're still radioactive. That's a nuclear war, and there's been at least 1, maybe 3. I think 3 nuclear wars on this planet. The ET said that they're not going to let it happen again. One of them said, we can, if a nuclear war starts, we can't stop it all, but we can stop most of it. So, and then Bill Hamilton was a good friend of mine a long time ago. I think Bill passed on. He interviewed a guy that just had extraterrestrial contact. The ship landed, and they were human. They got out, and the guy said, why don't you stop us before we kill ourselves off and destroy the planet? And they said, well, we can't, because we would be held responsible for what you humans do as a result of our intervention in your affairs. So that's what stops a lot of them.
Well, I don't know. There might be a tipping point where we reach a certain level that, it isn't just us that gets destroyed. This affects other planets. If we're that dangerous, it would be, I think, in their best interest to stop it before it starts. And that's when the nuclear, what they were talking about, they were over the military facilities and shut them down, and both Russia and the United States, that they were deactivated. And so it says there's some ability there to do this.
Yeah, indirectly involved in all of that. I've been in this so long. I knew the guy that Jacobs. He was, and they just released a film just recently. They shot an intercontinental ballistic missile from Vandenberg in California, and it was out over the Pacific, and a UFO shot it down. They've got the film of this. The UFO, the missile was traveling 18,000 miles an hour, and this UFO came up to it like it was standing still, and shot at it from 4 directions, and then the intercontinental ballistic missile blew up. They've got it on film. Finally released that. So the extraterrestrials, in every single, I found this out just recently, every single nuclear, because they've tried to send, the U.S. has tried to send nuclear weapons to the moon. They want to explode a nuclear weapon on the moon to see what it'll do to the moon. And every single one of them has been shot down. So yeah, they're. I really wish that the ETs would finally do something, because we're out of control. I mean, we've got to be. Somebody's got to lay down the rules and the opinions or whatever. That's the only way this is going to be stopped. I mean, right now, we are so close to nuclear war. With all the stuff that's going around all the planet, we are very close to nuclear war. And the ETs, like you say, the radiation goes way out into space from a nuclear blast. It messes them up, and they're tired of us doing this stuff. I don't blame them. I wish,
There's a book, UFOs and Nukes, Extraordinary Encounters at Nuclear Weapons Sites. It was published in 2015, I think, Germany. Anyway, it talks about the incidents where there was interaction, there were sightings. It's like questioning, okay, so how much of this are they observing, and what are they doing to intervene? And they may already have been doing that for quite some time, just not overtly. And not in ways that we would know, because we don't know what other countries are actually experimenting with. There's so much going on that there's too much to keep track of.
Well, it's even too much for me. I mean, I'm overwhelmed with information. I know a lot of really high level people, and I get so much information. My brain hard drive is overloaded, and plus people are getting so confused and fearful now that there's confusion everywhere. It's really hard to deal with. It's just all the bickering and squabbling that goes on and all that.
I've learned a lot from Jacques Vallée's information, because he kind of takes notes from his diary and then puts them out in book form. And volume 6 is out right now. The things that I have learned from that was like 10 years ago. he was dealing with this. It's just now getting public viewing and talking about some of the things that they were describing. I think Gary Nolan was one of the conversations he had about, having the metamaterials and all that stuff and having these meetings behind the scenes and dealing with the disinformation, the intentional disinformation that was going on and most likely still going on at some level, because for the most part, the governments believe these things are a threat, and that gives them permission to counter with increased nuclear weapons, increased technology, increased surveillance, all that stuff. If they didn't consider it a threat, they wouldn't have access to that kind of funding. So it seems that that's basically the reason that we can talk about it more now, because there's also information that, they can get.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend, Cope Shellhorn. I think he's a professor in Brazil. He's a university professor in Brazil. And I met with Cope last time I seen him was 20 years ago. He wrote a book. About 120 UFO researchers have been murdered. Committed suicide by shooting themselves in the back of the head 4 times, or their brakes on a brand new car failed going down a hill. That kind of stuff. But his book never got published. And he said it was coming out soon, but it never got published. And I think it's about 120 UFO researchers around the world have been murdered. Strange things go on that we're not stupid. I mean, damn it. I mean, some people are. I mean, some people are just flat out stupid, but there are so many aware people now. They need to know this stuff. And when I'm on the big radio shows, I talk about it. I'm careful. I don't get into politics, and I don't get into other things I know I'm not supposed to talk about. So, but I talk about this stuff all the time, and I'm very careful. But nobody criticizes me anymore. So I've got to be pretty close to the truth, the reality, because I know people in the CIA and people that tell me stuff, and but it's got to change. I mean, it's extraterrestrials. And I'll tell you in a minute. The 3 I met, they say that they've said they will wait until we stop fighting with each other before they'll allow us to go out into the universe. But I'll tell you what, that's not going to happen. We got 1,000 years before we start fighting with each other. We went through World War II, and now World War III is on the verge right now. We've been killing ourselves by the millions, and we're getting ready to do it again. So the extraterrestrials just are fed up with it because it's the stupidity and the violence and all that. And I was just telling a friend of mine yesterday, the average 18-year-old watches 20,000 murders on movies on murders by the time they get to be 18. Actually that's going to mess up their minds. It's going to mess them up. So, that's our.
It's programming. It's programming.
Program. Yeah. So I mean, it's in my old age, I'm trying to do something like the 100th monkey. I'm trying to plant a thought. And I've done pretty good so far that spreads, all over, the world. And I hope I have, because I've talked to so many millions of people. So I'm hoping I can make a big difference, like the 100th monkey thing, that the flash goes all over the world and makes things better and more peaceful and more loving. Because, the whole thing about love really does it keeps the whole universe going, and this planet particularly. So it's something that when people talk about love, they love Pepsi, they love wine, they love cars. It's so prostituted. It almost has no meaning. So the research I've done with great ascended masters and that sort of thing, love propels this existence. We have to learn that. We have to do it. So that's
Well, it happens. I mean, you're in an area that seems to be that draws people. Just there is something about Sedona that's magnetic. And when you talk about this, you talk about your own abilities increased while you were there. My experience was the same thing. When I went there, I could hear the animals. I could hear the vegetation. You know, I could hear the space.
Yeah.
It was incredible. But I also knew I didn't need to live there. But it was magical, my time that I did spend there, and the things I've got my, the orbs in the sky picture. I had activity in the place that I was staying, knowing that this is part of that experience. I think once someone experiences or has some kind of encounter with something they can't explain, it shifts them. It shifts them psychologically, mentally, physically, spiritually. It opens them to the fact, not the idea, the fact that there's something else going on, and we are part of it. And that's why you experience it. So you're in a place that gives people the opportunity to make those connections.
Yeah, it's a pretty straight. The whole Verde Valley, the whole Verde Valley around here, not just Sedona, is pretty. I'm really glad I live here. I've been here, I guess, 38 years now. Things happen here that don't. I've talked to the best in the world, the top. Ross Coulthard and all those guys. There's no other place like Sedona. No other place. Not what happens here. It's not the same.
Tom Dongo, my guest, coming up in the next segment.
Sandia Peak, there was an alien base in Sandia Peak in Albuquerque, New Mexico. There was an alien base.
He has 8 books available on Amazon.